To begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. Those of you new to GoToWebinar, you may see a control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. If that is in your way, there's a vertical toolbar with a little right-hand arrow. If you click on that arrow, it'll hide the control panel and get it out of the way. Don't lose track of that control panel. It is very useful. If you would like to pose any questions during the webinar, you can click the left-hand arrow, which will expand the control panel, and you'll see a question and answer box where you can type in your questions. And depending on the question and timing, we will either pose that question on your behalf to Mike during, or at the end of the webinar during the Q&A phase. Please do submit your questions. We look forward to hearing them. Any questions we don't have time to answer during the webinar, we'll make sure we get you a written response or a phone call following to answer that question. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mike Phillips, President and founding partner of Phillips Architecture, a 25-year-old multidisciplinary design firm in Raleigh, North Carolina. Phillips Architecture has been awarded the Leading by Example Premier Award for Client Satisfaction by PSMJ, the Best Architectural Workplace and Best Collaborative Firm Awards by Zweig White, and has been named to PSMJ's Circle of Excellence many times. A registered architect, Mike has incorporated his more than 30 years of architectural experience into the development of a customized method of collecting and incorporating client insights into benefits for architectural and engineering firms and for their clients. And Mike is going to share those insights and those processes with you today. Mike, welcome to the webinar. We look forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Hello, this is Mike. I think I'm turned on here as far as the microphone goes. It's great to be invited to speak, and it sounds like there's a great roster of people tuning in. So I'll just make my apologies right here in the beginning that I profess to be probably less smart than most of you guys and less strategic about exactly how to take care of clients. But one of the things that's happened, at least with us and the way we run our architectural firm, as well as the information that has been streaming by us from our clients, from us running a sort of a feedback tracking system with them, is that it told us a lot of things that were very surprising to us. It confirmed some things that we thought we knew, and so we were a little bit more confident to factor that into our strategies. But we heard a lot of things from the clients that really sort of, if not caught us by surprise, at least began to morph the way we thought they thought of us. And maybe more importantly, the way we could see doing our work in dealing with our clients to maximize our value to them, while at the same time minimizing the time that it took to create that additional value. So one of the things that we're kind of talking about today is not just building client loyalty and sort of avoiding surprises, but actually sort of mapping the elusive client's mind. And so it's if you ask me, it's the same thing, because if we can understand how they are looking at us and what we do, what kind of effect it has on the client, then we can sort of reverse engineer the process and create a lot more value and get all the sort of virtuous benefits, not only that would accrue to our firm, but also to our staff and to the client. So one of the things I wanted to mention, I just was looking at a proposal from a general contractor. We're getting ready to have a meeting tomorrow, and we were getting a project priced, and so this contractor who we'd met and talked with numerous times and was saying, oh boy, we can be so helpful here. We are just a contractor to meet your needs, and boy, this is right up our alley. Well, I got the proposal. Now this thing is getting ready to go to our mutual client, and the proposal says nothing about being helpful. The proposal, the first page, is all about a bunch of costs for actually a bunch of deliverables, which isn't even what the client's really asking for. They're just sort of means to an end, right? The client was asking for, can you help me get this thing redone? And and then the general contractors pricing stuff like man hours of superintendent demo coordination, and I was just thinking, you know what? We often price our deliverables, but it's often not really our deliverables that the client is most interested in or most seeking. Well, when I get to the second page of this proposal, guess what's on that thing? A list as long as your arm that basically says what's not included. And it says we do not include so-and-so, we do not include that so-and-so, this proposal does not include this, not include that. And it reads like a long list of things that I suspect our client, and maybe a lot of clients, wouldn't really know if that's something that the project's going to have eventually, and it's just not included. So beware later for a change order, or what. So I thought, you know what, we often do things and present it to our clients from the way that we do it. We sort of think of we format it from the way that we create it. But one of the things that we want to talk about today, and if we're successful, we're going to generate, at least for a moment, a heightened awareness of the client's mindset, to where if we can format things more in a way that the client can see the immediate benefit of hiring us to help them, then we're miles ahead. You'd hate to think that after all the work you do to understand what a client needs and to create that proposal, which is a lot of hard work, that the formatting of the proposal gives the client the wrong impression of us, does not talk about us helping them, but rather talks about how we quantified our deliverables. So anyway, so enough said about that. But that's our goal today, and we're going to have some strategic information about conceptually how are we looking at this, and what from the information that we've seen both from our clients and from being able to see without names, the flow of information from about 70,000 clients sort of worldwide. What are some patterns and trends, and what are the typical kind of responses and behaviors and preferences that seem to be embedded in all that tracking information that we've been collecting and looking at? So let's get on down the road here. One of the things that I wanted to mention, and not to extol the virtues of some awards, but the last one under the top there, the Premier Service Client Award, independent surveys go out to clients of all the design firms who enter that competition, and their clients actually send information back about how well they created value, and our firm, and you'll quickly realize that I'm not the sage strategist here. Our firm actually came out with the highest sort of quantified metrics, the highest scores of any firm in the country. And I don't think it's because we're particularly sharp, or certainly not me, but I think it's because once you start listening to the client and collecting this very specific type tracking information that I'm going to tell you about, you get to know them in a way that you can become very attuned to not only clients in general, but more specifically, each separate client and their unique kind of preferences. So that award to us said, you know what, this really does work. If you add this information in with all the other stuff you look at on a daily basis to run a firm, you're miles ahead. And for those of you who can stay until the end, I have a way, we have developed a way of combining the client tracking information with overall project profitability, and actually letting you see something that that is the most strategic representation of what your efforts created, and instantly gives you some pretty clear guidance on, so what do we do to maximize the benefit going forward? So that's our goal here, not just to say, boy, why don't we just talk to our clients? Everybody talks to their clients, but how could you do it in such a way that it would be extremely strategic, metric-laden, actionable data is what we're after. So, and for those of you who would say, oh my goodness, I don't want to, have to dote on the clients, because if I do, oh, my staff, they're going to, they're not going to like that. They're going to think, boy, if the client says something that's painful, then they're going to, want to just bolt out of here. But I tell you, while we were earning that bottom Leading by Example award, we were also winning Zweig White's Best Design Workplace Award. And for those of you familiar with that one, it comes about from a confidential survey of the people in your firm. The information goes directly to Zweig White, and they're saying, here's what it's like to work in this workplace, in our case, our architectural firm. And so that information is compared obviously with all the other firms that have entered, and we got number one. And the takeaway there for me, and maybe for you guys too, is that actually, if you are bringing client tracking metrics through your firm, that there is an extraordinary amount of comfort and awareness produced in your staff members, as well as, from what we have seen, flexibility. And you actually end up with a much more aware and much more strategic workforce who find their work much more satisfying. Why? Because they know the result from their client's perspective. And that information, particularly for the millennials, and there's more of you guys out there now than there are us baby boomers, it's what you guys crave, and not once-a-year salary reviews. You want it instant. You want it real time. So this is what we're going to show you today. Okay, so what are we going to learn? Well, we're going to talk a little bit, just a moment, about the client's mind, and we've already sort of headed down that road. And then we're going to say, how do you identify what your clients want? And how do you get that information unique to each client? Then we're going to talk a little bit about how do you deal with that? How do you collect it? How do you sort it? How do you not use much of your precious time in doing all of that? But how do you handle this stuff for your own success? And then, if we do this well, we will actually minimize the type of client problems which really kind of rock our boat, if not sink our ship. And then we're going to talk about how do you track your clients. And by that I mean, if we watch them over time and we are collecting this, once again, metric-laden data, then we can begin to see patterns, and we can begin to be proactive about doing things that will increase our value, because we know how the client tends to react. And last but not least, we're going to show you how, if you combine the client metrics in with your profit metrics, you can see your world in a way that I would invite you to stay around for that. That will come at the end of the program. And I believe you will find it gives you so much more information than what most firms are currently looking at. Okay, so let's get started. So why are you all here? And there's a substantial number of you out here that tuned in for this one. Well, our sense is that we all know that there is a big difference between clients and customers. And we're kind of saying clients are developed by relationship, and what they are buying is help. So it's always people relating to one another. It's situational dynamics, and there's all kinds of personalities and all kinds of drivers that are very nuanced and subjective and social, but that's the nature of the beast. Whereas customers are more transactional oriented. They buy things. And so really, on the client side, we have two-way communication. On the customer side, we have one-way communication. They tell us about their product, we make a decision to buy, and that's pretty much the end of it. So what we're talking about today is not the whole customer side, but rather the sort of white-collar service professional that is dealing with a client who may be very exacting in their expectations and may be very unique and demanding in their perceptions. So we're going to talk about how to keep that from getting the best of you, how to actually master that with a lot more adroitness than often we are taught to do, particularly in school. Okay, so why are you here today? I suspect it's because you understand that if we know how to build real value with each one of our clients, that's a very powerful way to improve not only the success of our firm, but the satisfaction of our team members, the team members in our firm most notably. And last but not least, we're really talking about bringing more benefit to the client here, right? I mean, this whole thing today is really, if a client were watching, they would probably say, yes, I see where at times you're going to talk to me about that we need to be able to bill you for what we're doing. But yes, if you actually become a more valuable provider to your client, the client wins big time. So this is all mutually beneficial. This is win-win stuff. Okay, so let's just take a quick look before somebody goes, oh, why would you even put forth the effort? I mean, what do you really get out of it? Well, you get a lot. This is a pie piece. There's pie pieces here. On the right-hand side is sort of the external benefits. This is sort of like your marketing, your pricing and whatnot. On the left are the internal benefits, or primarily efficiencies of processes within your own firm. But watch what happens if you can increase your understanding of your clients. On profitability, you can improve your firm's value to your clients. The natural next step is that your pricing factors in more of that value. On liability, you can actually reduce client claims and problems, and I'm going to show you why that little dynamic works so nicely. And marketing, well, basically, if you're closer and more valuable to your clients, it improves your hit rate and it makes your referrals that much better. All you marketing people sitting out there, take note. If your firm can find a way to improve the value to their clients, it gives you a lot better weaponry to go after projects. All right, so left-hand side, internal benefits, office processes. Well, leadership, I mean, let's just note the obvious. It helps leaders understand what sort of skill sets are really evident and displayed in your staff, which lets you improve your staff assignments and training, because you can see the information, the feedback that comes back from the clients relative to a particular staff member and what they were doing. So you can see instantly where they do their best work and where they probably could be reassigned differently to do a better job. So staff performance, it not only improves their accountability, because anything you measure is going to tend to improve, but their client focus. And this is not to say, because I love my staff, that there's no one out there who's just trying to sort of slough off. I mean, in my opinion, there's not. But if we give this information to them that lets them see more their clients' expectations and perceptions, I think they understand how to become more valuable to their clients. And that performance not only yields a satisfaction to the staff, which reduces your firm's loss of key staff, but it actually adds to the billability, reduces problems. This whole wheel on the left-hand side, the pie pieces relate to the pie pieces on the right-hand side. So when you think about even a marginal increase in just a few of those pie pieces for the average firm, it is substantial benefit that has overwhelming and sustainable benefits. So what we're talking about here is not just some sort of a, hey, if you start drawing your drawings with a different kind of ink, someone's going to see it better. This has universal benefits. Okay, so let's just state this, and it's partially in humor, but they don't often tell us all that we need to know. They kind of think that we should know some of it. They think that we should probably know that they are a typical client, even though if yours are like mine, none of them are the same as the others, so there's no typical. But I don't, in my opinion, as running a firm for over a quarter of a century, I don't think clients feel like it's their job to inform us of their expectations and perceptions. And so it's up to us to find out. And I tell you what, when we started looking at how to do this, our first stab at it was that it was an extremely complicated, almost just a little nest of vipers in there, as far as all the different things that you probably want to find out and then keep finding out as you progress through a project. But then we said, no, you really don't need to do that. All you need to do is ask them a few questions along the way. So we said, if we know exactly how to ask and when to ask what questions, that's it. That's nirvana. That's bingo. So I would define nirvana here as knowing how and when to ask the right questions. And before you get off this thing today, if you stay until the end, you're going to see, I think, some of the best information in the field, particularly for the AE industry, which has many sort of elements that align with law, with all kinds of white-collar service professionals. But you will hear, since I'm an architect, a lot of sort of tie-ins to the architectural and engineering field. But you're going to hear a lot about exactly how to do this for our type of client. Okay, so what do our clients want? Well, not to preach to the choir, and forgive me if I am, but if we don't understand what they want or what they expect or how they think, then it's a huge impediment to our firm's success. And it's one that if you take what we're talking about today as something that can easily be accomplished, it doesn't have to be there. So it kind of burns money. It just flushes it. And that's what we found as we started factoring this information that we were collecting into our processes and into everyone's awareness, is that things instantly got better. PSMJ just ranked us as in the top 2% of profitability. And it's not because we have some different system. It's just that we get closer to our clients. So if we can understand what the clients want, what they expect, and what they think, then it's a potent generator of a professional firm's success. And that's what we're all after, right? Okay, so let's take the broad view for a moment. This is for all these sort of ENFPs out there talking about Myers-Briggs who kind of like to understand the concept first, and then we're going to get into some nitty-gritty. But the broad view is basically the clients want to be enlightened by our expertise. They want to see that. They want it to show up. They also want to see us leverage the standard tools and approaches and resources, including the other people around us, the sort of other stakeholders and other consultants. They want to see us collaborate with these people and to actually develop a sort of a project group mind that brings all kinds of expertise and approaches to the table, to their project, to create the best solution. They also want to see us open to new ideas. But while we want to be open, my experience is that they constantly want to hear that we are minimizing the risk to them. If I were to have to oversimplify it and say, what do my clients seem to want in one statement, it would be to give them decision-making power, but to minimize the risk that they can make a decision of the options I'm presenting that will not play well for them. So they also want us to validate our diagnosis and to get that sort of figured out before we present them solutions. Now, basically all we're saying here is they want us to do our homework well so that when we put solutions on the table for them to consider, that they are all well thought out and that they probably represent a range of things from high quality, higher cost to lower quality, lower cost, to where they can sort of figure out by how much quality and by how much budget or cost that they're willing to focus on solving problems, where their ideal solution is, where their sweet spot is. And last but not least, and for some of you, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about here. I think there's at least some clients that really want you to take them on this discovery phase of different options and different ways to solve their problems, and the kind of not just standard of living you may be improving by the project you are completing for them, but the actual quality of life improvement that you may be handing them as you create these solutions, as you solve these problems. So some of that never hurts, It's the kind of thing that we all sort of yearn for in one way or another. Okay, so now let's get to more tactical. If we can confirm to our client that our approaches are both efficient and effective, and efficiency is the whole sort of way we're doing it, and of course they want us to do it right, and that's so subjective, but also the effectiveness, that we're figuring out the right things to do. So you can have an efficient path that doesn't really get you to where you want to go, or the client where they want to go, and what have you really accomplished? You've probably burned a whole bunch of time and somebody's money. Okay, I'm not going to go over this wheel right now, but I think they want us to assess their situation on a continuing basis. So as the project goes along, it often goes from, hey, we want quality, and then all of a sudden it's a budget issue, and then the clock's ticking real loud, so schedule becomes important. And we're constantly sort of watching them move their priorities and to be able to reassess the situation, their project, on a continuing basis to where we follow the way that their orientation is moving, and we keep addressing it, if not become proactive when we see the patterns develop over time. Then they're looking for us to be flexible and for us to be able to follow them, and once again, I do believe, keep them out of trouble. Okay, and of course they want us to, ask questions and listen and collaborate, and they want us to steer, right? They want us to steer. Well, wait a minute, I think I got the wrong photo here. They want us, there we go. They want us to steer. So they want to see some guidance from us, not just sitting back taking a passive role and trying to let them run a project that they obviously need us to not just assist, but to be the accelerator. Okay, so they want us to do a great job on their project. As simple as this statement is, I would say that a lot of people a lot of professionals act like they've forgotten this. In other words, the clients are rooting for us to do a great job on their project. Now, let me give you a secret. This is kind of a little spoiler. If you ask for information from the clients, such as feedback, if you ask for it in a way that lets them see that if the client gives you this information, it will help you do an even better job for them on their project, guess what? They will respond, and we got the stats to prove it, at more than 10 times the average rate of people just filling out surveys. Why? Because they're your advocate. They want you to do a great job on their project. And if you ask correctly, strategically, they will give you this information because it helps them. Okay, so from 250,000 client responses, and by now we've even got more than that, the number one thing that the clients want from their professionals, drum roll please, and if all of you want to just sort of shout it out in the room where you're sitting, particularly if you're with others, what do you think it is that they want? Well, here's what we found. They want an effective relationship. Basically, they want to see us be responsive. This is some of the comments that came out. Responsive to my needs, didn't keep me waiting, didn't keep me guessing. They want responsiveness that says, okay, when they come out with something, a position, a statement, whatever, that we listen, we respond. So the key components there are communication. We're listening, we're talking, and that we're paying attention to them, and that we remain accessible to them. Now, if we go back and look at the client's mind, then the second question that comes up is, why did the client hire our firm for this particular project? Well, it has to be some version of this, which is because they had a problem to solve and they thought we could help them. So they've already chosen us in a way, sometimes among many. So there's already a bit of vote in your favor, which is setting up a very positive sense as to how the client views your firm. So after they hire us, then their assumptions about what we're going to do, they sort of turn into expectations. Now they're paying money, so they sort of expect to get whatever their money's worth. They expect to get solutions. They sort of expect us to do what they think you told them you could do. Now, there's a bit of a complicated sentence there, but basically there's all kinds of things that begin to fold in that begin to say, yeah, well, some people can hear something multiple ways. Two different people can hear the same thing and have different takeaways. Sometimes we say something and we really meant to say it a little bit differently. There's all kinds of nuances and subjective sort of variables that come into communication. And often it's just about impossible to always be completely precise in what you say in a way that everyone listening to you can understand. So let's just leave it that there's always gray area that gets produced when communication occurs. But basically, they're going to think that you're going to finish the work on time, on budget, with minimal problems. I mean, that's the simple stuff, right? Along with the great relationship. So if we can understand if we can collect information that helps us understand their expectations and perceptions, then we're miles further along, because no matter what the communication is happening, we can see how they're reacting to it. So we can sort of see what triggered certain reactions, and that tells us a whole lot about how to work most efficiently with that client. Okay, so there's a big thing that we're going to talk about today, the difference between expectations, which is sort of a previously set mindset, which is here's what they expected us to do. And then perceptions are, this is real time. So something happens, and how they perceived it is what we're trying to find out. Because I've seen people come back from meetings at my office, and I go, how was the meeting? And they say, oh, it was this. And then I hear later it was that. In other words, they can think that it was different than what the client took away from it. And this should give some comfort to a lot of people listening. The biggest difference, the biggest bust in accuracy of perceptions is that we often think it didn't go as well as the client thought it went. Let me repeat that. We often believe that it did not go as well, how the client perceived what we did, as well as the client thinks it did. The client thinks it was better than what we thought. And that misperception in many cases actually becomes a great problem for us. I'm going to show you a simple solution in a few slides. Okay, so they're expecting us to help them, and we're saying, how are they going to perceive what we do? Well, if we can help them succeed from their own standpoint, and if we believe in their success, in other words, we're kind of rooting for them, and we help minimize and manage interruptions to that success, we're miles ahead. You see the common theme here, that last word in every sentence? Success. So we're going, how do we find out what they're trying to, how they would define success, and how to help them move towards it? Well, basically, if we can find a way to not only root for their success, but if we do this well, it has enormous benefits for our firm, financially, branding, marketing, liability. It brings the client benefits, performance, efficiency, effectiveness, better communication, all those things are very much, for those of you sort of taking notes here, they're very key elements in the whole relationship piece, which is what we have found to be the number one thing that they're after. So they see that sort of, those things become better. And last but not least, and I tell you what, with the staff wars, manpower wars that are going on now, if you can bring your staff better satisfaction, increase retention, help them with career growth and compensation, then there's a big advantage, and the less turnover you've got, it's less disruptive, it's more beneficial. So this value of understanding the clients and their perceptions and expectations has benefits for all major stakeholders. Okay, so we're saying it's a relationship that they want. So identifying their expectations means finding out what they care about. This is where it heads towards the relationship piece pretty heavily. But, you know, good news, bad news, basically, if we ask them in just the right way, they will show us exactly what they care about. The bad news is, it's not really bad, it's just the way it is that it constantly changes. As a matter of fact, the only thing that's consistent about this is that it constantly changes. Is that as they move through a project, as they move through the different phases of a local or national economy, as they move through their own life events, then the way they look at things, their expectations, their perceptions change. So what's the important thing to do is you keep collecting this information. One static measurement is almost more disruptive to your understanding than continual measurements. And I'm not talking about bothering the client. Whoever's starting to think that, recall my slide a few slides back, which said the clients wants us to do it. They wanted us to do a great job on their project. So if you are collecting information throughout their project to help you do a great job, they'll give you the information. They'll actually know that you're trying to be more valuable to them. That's not a bad message to send your client. Okay, strategies and tactics. So I'm not going to do a ton of reading here, but Basically, the strategy is the general plan. The tactic is the specific action. So let me show you a few things. We're going to run through this kind of fast, but it's basically 6 quick tactics to help build in the sense of each one of your clients' minds that you are their expert and that you are a valuable project partner. Number 1, ID each client's expectations. 2, track each client's perceptions. That's what we've been talking about. That helps you identify each client's loyalty drivers. Then make staff assignments that fit. Utilize successes and challenges as measured by the feedback you're collecting. And then last but not least, utilize that feedback for everyone's success. Let me give you a little bit of detail on each one of these. So if we're trying to collect the specific expectations of each client, we want to check in at the start of the project, and we want to be collecting this information. We'll call it feedback, but it's actually much more comprehensive than just feedback. We want to start from the beginning of the project, and we want to collect this information after specific events, because that allows us to see the client's reaction to what just happened. That gives us the most accurate understanding. And basically, it begins to not only show us what they're thinking and how they're perceiving, what their expectations were, we can begin to see patterns. And boy, that's when it really gets interesting, because that's when you can become very proactive with a particular client. And that client will simply, as they see you become more adroit with handling them and the way they like work done, you will become their expert. Okay. And what we're talking about here is if you collect your feedback, and we've got a patent on our tool, so don't just copy this, but you can see the concept here, which is you don't want to say, do you think we're a wonderful firm? What you're looking for is information about how did we do relative to how you expected us to do, because that tells you what their expectations were. It also tells you what their perceptions were. That's what you're trying to find out. Step 2. Identify the client's specific perceptions. Well, track how they perceive, see what happens. This tends to show how they interpret what they see. So when something happens, once again, same as the first, collect some tracking information, collect some feedback. And so when a budget meeting occurs and you're sort of trying to work on their behalf and you're doing things a certain way, you can see what they think of your process. It's really the process they are responding to. Oop. This shows their personal filters. While these filters do change, these are the things that affect the way we see, the way we experience, the way we convert what our reality is into our perception of it. And so when you begin to see someone's filters as they go through a project, you become much better at understanding what's going to become important to them. And everyone is different. I mean, everyone is different. All you got to look at is like personality tests, and even the Myers-Briggs has like 16 different major categories. And within every 2 categories, there's major differences. So we just make room for the differences. Okay, step 3, identify each client's loyalty drivers. Now by this, what I mean is that their highest and lowest scores, the things that they are most focused on, whoa, boy, you really knocked it out of the park here. Well, that thing's important to them. And when they say, you know what, I have a concern about the way this was handled, that thing's important to them. So when you're collecting this feedback, the highest and lowest scores, guess what? They tend to be the things that are most important to the client, i.e., they're loyalty drivers. So if we can find these things, then we know how to make sure they are attended to and they drive loyalty. Once again, you marketing people are probably going, yeah, pay attention to this. This makes their job a lot easier, which makes the firm work better. Okay, now this is not too scientific, but the basic concept is accurate, and we can show it, we can prove it. So when we look at loyalty drivers, remember we said that what clients want most is relationship? Well, what a lot of firms, I'm sure none of you guys, but our firm in the beginning, what we kept thinking they were after from us was the deliverables. We often said, yeah, they need a plan. Yeah, they need a this. It was always a deliverable that we could produce, because that's sort of what we saw as our job, or at least a big piece of it. But then when you start getting this feedback, you realize that what they want is for you to pay attention and to give them solutions, good working solutions. So it's the relationship. Now the deliverables are important. And if I were to take this same chart and say, so how much of a firm's time, if you counted everyone's hours, and you put them all together and you said how many of these are related to producing deliverables versus building client relationships, I would tend to say this would flip around. But from the client's perspective, the ability for them to see that you are putting a sufficient amount of effort, energy, strategy, attention, whatever you want to call it, into that relationship, you're miles ahead. Okay, so the relationship. What does it involve? Helpfulness, responsiveness, and quality. As a matter of fact, what we found was that if you're collecting information from a client to sort of find out how things are going, that you ask one question in each one of those categories. I mean, our basic question is, how well did our firm's process assist you in managing the quality of the product, of the project? How well did our firm's process respond to your needs and questions? How helpful was our firm's process in assisting you with your project? In other words, these sort of soft, more subjective questions, if you ask one in each one of those categories, you've collected a pretty wide, broad sort of sweep of information. What we found was it's much more important to have a broad sweep, sort of like radar, the way radar works on a boat. It's much more important to have a broad sweep and look for all kinds of issues than it is to try to do a whole bunch of drilling down every time. The drill down can really be handled in person later on, once you find out what the issue is, if it even exists. Okay, so deliverables, there's three things that tend to come up with deliverables: schedule, cost, and accuracy. And while the client is most after that relationship, we found it's always very effective to ask about deliverables, but not so much like, did you like our plan, but more like, how well did we do to help keep your project on schedule, within budget, and what do you think of the accuracy of the deliverables? This often can let you know what a general contractor is portraying your deliverables to be back to the owner. Very helpful information. Okay, so step 4, make staff assignments that fit the client. And what I'm saying here is often that it fits the particular expertise of the staff member. So best tactic is place staff where they get the highest feedback. Why? Because for whatever reason, that's where they do their best work from the client's perspective. And guess what? They're going to find that most satisfying. So you can look at the client type, you can look at all kinds of different categories here to sort this out. You can look at project type, the complexity of the project. You can look at Myers-Briggs of the client. You can look at, all kinds of cultural things might come into play here, but if you're collecting feedback, it's very easy to go, who gets the best feedback from our staff with this particular client? And I would tend to use that person as the go-to person for working with that client. However it's happening, it's working. Okay, so for staff strategy, there's assignments and training, right? If there's an HR person in the room, here we go. So while this is somewhat oversimplified, I find in our staff that it's a very important thing to be able to understand about each staff member. There's client managers, there's project producers. Both are indispensable, both are extremely valuable, but they often, if they're real specialists in their own category, they often aren't the best in the opposite category. So client manager, we're talking about what specific client fit, which one's best, and the client type. And a client manager, you sort of have a seller or a seller-doer. With project producer, what we're looking at is what's the project type that fits them best, schedule, size, complexity, etc. So this person is a doer or a doer-seller. We come up with a little chart that sort of lets everyone call out where they think their best contributions are. And it begins to denote if they think they are strictly a doer, strictly a seller, or a doer-seller, and sort of how much into that adjacent zone they think they do well. Okay, so for a client manager, if you're going to be doing training, then if you ask me, from what we've seen on the feedback coming in, train them in communication, collaboration, psychology, and financial reports. You're going to go, financial reports? Yes. You got to make sure that each person, while focusing on their particular side of things, knows enough about the other side of things that they can converse and they can know how to collaborate with their sort of project partner on the other end in your firm. Project producer, same sort of thing. Computer systems, construction detailing, contract law, all that stuff. Oops. And also I would say here, if these people can have regular interaction with the client people to understand what is the client really looking for. In the illustration I gave you when we first started, where I said, "Oh, I just read a proposal," and oh man, it was like horrible because it was almost sounding mean to the client who was going to read it. So if this person, let's say, is producing the proposal because they're saying, "Yeah, I can quantify most of the work that we will do," why not have them hand the proposal before handing it to the client person in your firm, so the client person, the client manager, can look at it as far as what kind of tone, what kind of messaging is in this thing. Maybe it needs to be formatted a little bit more for it to convey the right info, the right message. Okay, so overall in staff training, some people go, well, what's their weak spot, and let's train in their weak spot. But actually, each particular person is going to have less interest in that kind of training and less ability, less satisfaction, less comfort. And basically, if you take a poor performer in a particular area, let's say they're a very good performer in another area, but a poor performer, and you train them in that, I mean, really, you're just going to move them up a little bit. But look at the option. If you train to enhance their strength, they have more interest, more natural ability, more enthusiasm, and a lot more comfort in that training. Plus, you take a good performer and train them further, you get a star performer. And really, what would you rather have? A team of mediocre performers? Or, I mean, the Avengers, a group of strong performers and specialists? I mean, that's got to be a no-brainer right there. Okay, so if we set training and make assignments based on each person's strengths, then we're miles ahead. So number 5, with this information we're collecting from the clients, we want to repeat successes and refine process to improve where we did not succeed as well as we would like. So the tactic is, on high feedback scores, those are basically your strengths, at least for the combination of people and processes that you have on the project. So basically, that worked. If we have low scores, there are opportunities, particularly if we find them first. So low scores are simply, they show you what process to refine, what combination of what you did and how you did it to sort of look for improvements. So when the expectations are exceeded, then basically it shows you where your strength or your process worked, and we can ask the question why, which brings about some very good strategic thinking. It also lets the marketing people promote those strengths to other potential clients, because you can rely that it is reliable to think that those strengths can be repeated with other clients, with other projects. So note what worked for each client and when, because this is important, because it will begin to say if we can see these patterns, we'll be miles ahead. And we want to look at specific actions. And we want to think about what the parameters were. When did this occur? What was the event? What was the issue? What specific aspect did the client find most valuable? And here's where it really makes sense to focus on the highest scores they gave you. If you can maintain and make repeatable those high scores, then some of the low scores are much less important. Sometimes somebody's just a tough grader on something, but the high scores show you where they are most delighted. Feed that delight. Okay, but let's talk about client problems for a minute. the more problems the client has with our process. I know the lower our value is with that client. I mean, it can't help but happen that way. They are, at least most of them, at least, human. So if the expectations are not met, then the problem has been identified and sort of published. And basically, we can identify it as an opportunity to build value. And the basic question that we go to our client with is, what would work better? In other words, we aren't saying, why don't you like us, or I thought you were going to be nice or whatever, but ask, what would work better? Because what you're really looking for is them to help you see what process they had in mind. And guess what? If you follow their lead here and try out the process that they are suggesting would work better, guess what? Even if it doesn't work better, you think they're going to blame you? No, as long as you gave it a good shot. But suddenly you have a partner, and it lowers your liability while also increases your chance that they will put more and more credit in not only what you do, but what you think, your ideas. Because they're aware, as we all are to some degree, that no one's ideas are always perfect. So this promotes flexibility to refine the very process that your firm uses to do their project. And discussing better approaches with clients is a great thing to do, because it lets them see that the longer they work with you, i.e. more and more projects, the more you're going to learn about becoming their expert. And that's to their benefit. So when we utilize the client's approach going forward, it creates a bond. It creates a synergistic sort of affiliation between the two parties, which is always positive and dramatically reduces, like I said before, liability. Okay. Plus, the client can see that your value to them is improving. Okay, so what's the outcome? I mean, it's not bad, right? Okay, last but not least, utilize the feedback for ongoing value growth. And what I'm talking about is collect the feedback during the project. When the client applauds, repeat and publish. Where there's a problem, refine the process with the client. So basically, you're using this feedback to check refinement as you go forward and keep publishing. So you keep looking for what's working great, keep doing it. What can work better, refine with client, and then keep checking. Okay, let me show you something the American Institute of Architects put together. They said, we would like to measure the client's view of the designer, in this case the architect's value, from the start of the project all the way through to the end. And they were hoping that they would see that as the architects kept sort of working on the client's behalf, that this would climb, right? And so they sort of said, all right, well, most projects sort of go through meetings and phases and deliverables and all this kind of stuff. And here's what they found, is that the perceived value of the designer by the client throughout the project actually declined. And it tended to decline significantly over several events. Usually they had to do with this discussion of project budget. There was a little kick up at the end, but it did not bring you back up to the point where you started. So there's an overall deterioration. Now, I know a lot of firms probably work hard to minimize this, but it's a natural tendency that the clients have when they sort of, get us in there, and the whole world's a complicated piece, and sometimes even budgets and schedules and all those initial expectations are unrealistic. And so as more realism is added in, it's often not a wonderful thing for the client to see, but it's reality, and it's almost unavoidable. But what we're suggesting is, if you ask for feedback, don't wait till the end. It's too late. Can't do anything with it. Can't do anything about it with this project. What we're saying is, ask for this feedback throughout the project. And dare I say it, be brave. Ask for it when you think something may have gone astray, because often you will have underestimated your value. Ask for it from the very beginning. Ask for it at meetings. Ask for it at end of phases. Ask for it throughout the project. Don't be afraid to ask for it. You will probably get information back every time. And if you don't, I would suggest that your value to that client has actually improved just because you cared enough to ask. Okay, and guess what? Unless you completely ignore the client's feedback and tell them you're ignoring it, your value as perceived by the client will improve. Why? Because of what we just looked at. Because now your process is being blended in with their preferences and their priorities and their proposed process. So their identification with the project process is no longer that it's just yours, but that it has joint ownership. So their sense of its value, their sense of their comfort with it increases. And that's a huge plus for everyone. Okay, plus there's this little thing called conformational consistency. And for you psychology majors out there who shifted into design, whatever, it says once your client places a high value on your process, there is a tendency for them to maintain that view, and they will also tend to relate that view to others. So once we find ways to improve a client's sense of our value to them, they will not only tend to maintain that view, but they will also share their findings. Now, once again, you imagine people, marketing people are going to go, oh yes, this is good stuff. Okay, so minimizing managing client problems. I'm not going to say this is all the client problems, but let's just look at a simple way of sort of diagnosing this. If our client's sense of our value, as we perceive it, affects every pricing decision that we make, then what we think they think, and that means what the designers think that the clients think, affects the way we act. It can't help but. And I gotta tell you, maybe your firm's completely different, but it probably isn't, because I've been to enough conferences, and most of you have too, where they talk about some of the things that we do to ourselves to undermine our own success in design firms, and it's often very similar things for most firms. Basically, we think that that our client problems are basically, well, the cost of that is the lawsuits. Yeah, and there's some piddly other stuff, but it's mostly like lawsuits. But actually, they say that lawsuit type costs for client problems are very minor compared to all the other stuff. And when they begin to list these things, it's things like low initial fees. Once you think you've caused a problem for a client asks you for a fee for another project, you tend to give them a lower fee. You tend to let scope creep. And this, of course, is where the scope creeps with no additional fee. You tend to let scope creep eat, I think PSMJ says, about 10% of your project budget. Your pay to fix problems, because we sort of think, hey, I better just pay for that because I don't want to tell the client that really it's something that they should be asking me to pay for. Plus, if we think we've had angry clients, we tend to stay away from them. We tend to reduce our communication. That's not good. And it sort of hurts our reputation. On the other side, we got waste. This is internal stuff. But wasted efforts. We tend to do things if we don't really know what the client's after. That tends to waste our effort, which means it adds cost to our performing of the project, and it tends to increase the schedule. Neither of those help anybody. And staff satisfaction. If they sort of know the client's not really happy, that's not good for staff morale. And basically, it damages our culture. And what is that worth? It seems these days more and more. Okay, so what's creating this problem? We got some really great information from some of the liability insurers, and what they found is that 8 out of 10 claims where a client files a claim against a design firm that is not caused by something like product failure, bridge falling down or something horrible like that, that they actually arise out of poor communication. And you're saying, poor communication? Boy, I mean, everyone who's listening to this probably has at least one, if not two, communication devices, cell phone included, iPads, etc. We're communicating like crazy. We're probably communicating now more than anybody's ever communicated in this world before. So you're going, well, how could that be? Well, It's that we don't tend to ask clients for the information that would be most helpful for us to understand their expectations and perceptions. That's the stuff we're not asking for. So we have all this communication about the sort of easier stuff, but this, because we think it's hard, and I can tell you right now it's not, we don't ask about it. We think that somehow it's a scary question to ask. It's not. So without this info, we have to guess about what the client's thinking, and guess what? We tend to guess wrong. We tend to, once again, underestimate our value as it's perceived by the client. Okay, now let's just do something here. You're probably let's see what you guys think. Now disregard those two bars right there. That was us testing. But the question is, and I want you to get out your cell phones, and I want you to get ready to text. As a matter of fact, you can go ahead and send this text to 22333. So the address to send the text to is 22333. And the text itself will be uppercase Mike Phillips 715. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what the first question is. We got two questions here. The first one is, how often do professionals exceed their clients' expectations? I want you to tell me how often you think that occurs. How often do we exceed their expectations? 10%, 25, 40, 50, half the time? So tell me what you're thinking. We're going to have about 30 seconds here, so go ahead and put your votes in. I think this is going to count the first 25 votes, then we're going to go to the next one. But so text your vote as either A, B, C, D, or E if you actually think it's more. Tell us what you're thinking. So go ahead and text. The address to text to is 22333. And then the message that you're texting is Mike Phillips 715. And then you're going to be given the chance to input either A, B, C, D, or E. So tell me what you're thinking here. How often do professionals exceed their clients' expectations? Give a few more minutes here. Come on, I know we got some texters out there. Looks like we've got the biggest vote is for 10% of the time. Tied after that is 25 or more than 50. Well, 25, okay. So let me go ahead and propose something here. The biggest vote by far is that 25% or less of the time that we are exceeding our clients' expectations. So if we think that's the case, how do you think we tend to do all those things related to pricing or communication? If we think that they think that we are underserving them more than half the time. It's not good, right? All right, I'm going to go to the next here and show you what our research shows. And then we got one more poll coming up. So get ready, keep your phones out. This time let's get more answers. So by far, the overwhelming majority are thinking that less than 25% of the time that we're underserving our clients from their perspective. Well, guess what? The actual answer is almost 75%. Remember the scale I showed you? It measured everything according to what the client was expecting, and the midpoint was met expectations. So the 250,000 data bits, surveys that we've gotten, that we've been able to see coming in from clients, show that 75% of the time, the clients are saying you exceeded the expectations we had. 75%. So just think for a moment. If we think it's less than a quarter of the time, and it's actually 3/4 of the time, what kind of a disconnect is that? And if we were to be able to get our people to understand that they had, on average, that kind of applause from their clients, what do you think it would do for them? What do you think it would do for your firm, your communication process, your fees, your liability, all of that? Okay, there's another question here. I want you to do some voting. This one is about problems. So when clients see problems, our value is diminished, especially if we are not aware and seemingly not interested in resolving. It sort of gives that, Scarlett O'Hara, Rhett Butler thing. Frankly, my dear, I won't read it. So the question now is, how often do clients restore a high valuation in their professionals after we make a mistake and we address it? Same thing. If you're still sort of texting, just text to that same number, the same name. How often do you think professionals or clients restore a high valuation in their professionals after we make a mistake and we address it? Okay, let's see if we can get a few more votes here. Okay, here we go. So just text your answer. And if you're not able to text for whatever reason, then if you're in a room with several people, tell them what you think, because it's an interesting dynamic. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and roll with this one. So what we have now is equal votes for 10%, 75% or more. And what I think is happening is that you're probably listening to me say that we chronically underestimate what we think our value is to our clients. And so I think you're starting to believe me. Because guess what? The answer is, once again, from our stats, and we got a ton of information creating this information, is 82.7%. So in other words, after a mistake is made, this is a designer created mistake, and we address it. It's not even that you have to go solve it, but just address what happened and how to avoid it in the future, and how to sort of move forward as strategically as possible. Our valuation goes up overwhelmingly, over 75%, 82.7% of the time. So you can see here that they don't seem to hold us. I mean, you can interpret it the way you will, but they don't seem to hold us to an impossible sort of level of perfection. As a matter of fact, they tend to think that we are often exceeding their expectations, and if we make a mistake and we address it, they swing back with that high valuation very often, and what we found is very quickly. Okay, so to address a problem that a client has, we just have to know that it's occurred, right? And big problems are like fires. They start small. So how do you find clients' problems when they start small and the client doesn't even tell you? Well, basically, you got to ask. And I'll include this from John F. Kennedy because it really does play along the same themes. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Replace the word country with client, particularly the second half. So if we're finding out what we can do for our client, and that's what we're asking them, then the whole dynamic swings around to where the client's going, I will be happy to give you information that you want in order to be more helpful for me. Okay, so ask in terms of the other person's interest. How can my firm's process be more valuable, be more helpful? What do we do that works well? What can we do different to be more valuable? How well has our firm's process helped in managing the project schedule? Now you'll notice none of this stuff is about do you like us or are we great? It's all about what can you tell me that would be helpful for us in helping you? When done well, this strategic communication, it benefits all, firm, staff, and client. All right, so let's look real quickly. We're heading towards the end now. Tracking your clients. Our sense is that you don't, whenever you're collecting feedback, you don't go drill down deep. You look at a broad sort of radar sweep of information. You're looking for issues, anomalies. That tells you where to drill down. You just want to understand their basic expectations. And this is how we categorize them to sort of simplify to where you can create, what we found was if you create a system in how you ask questions, then you can very methodically track results and compare results. And we said, well, there's human systems and there's mechanics. And on the left-hand side, the relationship stuff, effort and assistance, quick reaction, doing the right thing. On the right-hand side, help the client manage their cost, manage their time, and doing the thing right. So we've scanned these before, but these are the basic expectations, And what we have found, if you ask a question or two in each one of those, then you can find out if there's an issue. And once you find out, you go to the category that it's in, and you can tell if you've got a relationships issue or deliverables issue, and then exactly where it is. Critical factor is to track what a client thinks relative to their expectations, and whatever they are, that's what they are. You know, the client's never wrong in this. We may think they're unrealistic, but just to understand them puts us miles ahead. And they're all going to be different. And any particular client's perceptions will change over time. We have found that to be true almost always. So change is constant here. And don't wait till the project is over. Most people that we run into who say they have a great process for collecting feedback from their clients, they wait till the project's over and we just go, hey, look, that's an autopsy. It would be like asking your ex on your way out the door what you can do to be a more wonderful spouse to your next betrothed, and he or she is going to think, why didn't you ask me that question when it was time for this information to help our marriage? So what we're looking for here is we want to improve the relationship, right? So you ask for this information when there's time for it to improve your current relationship with that client. Okay, issues or opportunities if we find them, but they're big problems if the client finds them, knows about them, and knows we don't know about them. So let me show you 6 quick little secrets about asking for this information. Number 1, you got to know what you're looking for. Everything we've been talking about today, it says what you're looking for is information that will help you help them. So begin with the end in mind, which is what? A successful project and more with the same client. So seek to identify what makes you more valuable to each of those clients. Ask questions in terms of the other person's interests. Ask them how well your process helped them. Look for data that identifies the client's expectations and perceptions. I know you're getting tired of me saying that, but it is key here. Keep your questions short and simple. We visited a firm in Dallas once that said that they had a great system for collecting feedback, and they showed it to us. And it was 6 8.5 by 11 pages. And on each page, there was a long sort of 4 or 5 line question at the very top. And there was another one in the middle. And they were all kind of like thesis questions, you know, requiring a lot of thought and, you know, a lot of competition to get those things answered. And I was like, boy, that's pretty daunting there. I said, so how many of these have you sent out? And they said, oh, about 30. And I said, so what kind of feedback have you gotten back? I mean, what are they saying? And they said, oh, we've never gotten one turned back into us. We were just wondering, you know, what do we tell our clients to make sure that they know they need to fill them out? And so we help them see that if you keep your questions short and simple, then you will get much better participation. Don't make this hard for the client. It sort of, once again, shows that you're not really thinking about them. So make it easy to answer also. Focus on the client's expectations. They want helpful solutions. They want responsive, focused, productive help. So ask them if they got it. And collect it from the beginning to the end. If you don't take anything else away from today except for this, start collecting your client metrics from the very beginning of the project. We usually collect it after we've submitted the initial proposal. And often, if we're in competition with other firms, we will be given information that allows us and almost requests us to modify our proposal. And we do so. I mean, they were telling us to do it. So start from the beginning. It gives you an extraordinary advantage. Once again, here goes the marketing guys. Okay, just don't wait till the end. Okay, so on project team members, let the staff know the results of their efforts. Let them know. Don't hide this information. Measure the actual results of your staff from the client's perspective. Because remember, this is a great guy, Elton Mayo, behavioral psychologist. He said, whatever is measured improves. And guess what? Whatever is measured, this is Tom Peters, matters. So if you've been telling your staff that client focus matters, that taking care of clients matters, but you're not measuring it, all you're measuring is profit, then how does your process agree with your culture? I'd say if you add the measurement of taking care of our clients, then suddenly not only does it matter, but it will improve just because you measure it. Okay, now here's sort of how we do this thing, and while it is patented, I think when you see that it lets you sort of in a kinesthetic way, the midpoints kind of met expectations. Everything above that is that you've exceeded the expectations all the way up to exceptional. And if they sort of push that little gray arrowhead down, it says we did not meet expectations, and we're looking for they're looking for some kind of improvement. So optimal profitability, sustainable prosperity, they come easily if you can become your client's expert cost efficiently. So what we're saying here is, remember all the financial benefits of doing this. It says that with that kind of return, and some of this is immediate, some of it is long term, then the cost to do this is actually very low, particularly with respect to its reward. So last but not least, and here's where we blend the two types of information together. So most firms, ours included, would measure profit. And let's say this is a project profit. So we go, oh, how did that project do? Well, let's say it's the average percent profit of all our projects in the last year. So it's at X percent. Let's just use a round number. Let's say that's 15%. And then we look at another project, and they say, oh, you know what? We were actually at 1.5% profit. Oh boy, we just about broke even. Just barely better than break even. And then somebody shows up, and we go, how'd your project do? And we go, I lost money. Sorry, I lost money. I'm at a 15% loss. And we pull in somebody else, and we go, how'd your project do? Well, excuse me. So for those project results on the left-hand side of average, at the midpoint, we kind of say, you didn't really do it right. Hey, boy, we can't keep the business going if those are the outcomes. Now, on the other side, if we were actually achieving our target profit, let's say that was 25%, or maybe even a high profit, boy, let's say something hit 30, 40, I mean, maybe a nice juicy number. So if we look at our projects like this, we would tend to say those dots on the right, we would tend to applaud the project team and say, do it again, same way. Heck, man, that's a good result. But what we are proposing today is that this is a two-dimensional result, which doesn't really give you enough information. As a matter of fact, you might be sort of condemning a very good process, and you might be applauding a process which is fraught with peril. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's slide this thing to the bottom, and let's put that feedback scale I showed you on the vertical axis. Now we can say our midpoint on the vertical is met expectations. So we're going to plot project results now. So every dot that appears above that line means that the client said there was better than expected results. Anything below, less than expected. Now let's take our vertical line and put it on average profit. This is the average percent profit that your projects had, let's say, over the last year. So any project result that lands to the left of that line is a relatively speaking poor profit. Anything that sits on the right-hand side is relatively speaking a premium profit. Now we're just saying, let's just call it the profit, not particularly the entire project outcome, because actually, if we divvy this up and we factor in both the average feedback score and the percent profit, guess what? Any dots that appear in the upper left are good potentials. In other words, the client thinks you did a great job. You need to raise your fee. You had a marginal profit, but the client thinks you did a great job. You've earned more money. If you're in the upper right, you're in the expert quadrant. This is where we all want to head. This says premium profit, and also the clients are still saying you delivered more than they expected. Now, if you're in the expert quadrant, but you're only looking at profit, then guess what? You'll look the same as outcomes that are in the burnout quadrant, as we call it, which says you may have had a premium profit, but guess what? The client is not happy with your outcome. And that client is either getting ready to leave, fire you, sue you, never hire you again, and probably not promote you well with others. So here's where our marketing people are going to go, hey, look, we need to keep our results out of that quadrant. On the lower left, we call this the mismatch. And this is just saying that, you know what, the way you planned the project, you lost money. The way the client's expectations relative to your process, it was not a good fit. So this is a good place to sort of analyze, do we need to stay here? Do we need to stay in that project type, in that client type, with that particular client? Well, you can always just look at whatever they scored you lowest in and approach the client and actually move those dots up and move it up into the potential category, then raise your fees, move it to the right in the expert quadrant. So as most marketing people will tell you, it's easier to improve the relationship, particularly with some strategic information, with a client than it is to cut them loose, let them talk bad about you, and go find and develop other clients. So this gives you a way to actually strategically improve the clients that are below that met expectation line. But think about this. Let's spread all of our project results out here. Now, let's sort them by client. Holy smokes, the red dots, the E's, you know what? If we were just looking at profit, we would say, you know what, maybe we should just cut those loose. But actually, those clients are absolutely delighted with the work that you did. You've sort of underpriced it, or scope creep, or one of those other nasty gremlins came in and grabbed your profit, but it tells your people that are running those projects, you know what? They're telling you, don't you dare underprice yourself to where you can't keep working for us because we love working with you. So raise your fee. Guess what? When your people see these kind of results, they tend to, at least mine did, raise their fees because the clients don't want you to actually leave them because you aren't making profit. Most times the clients don't even know if you made a profit or not or how much. Look at the purples. The purples say, this is a great place for us to be. We're in the expert quadrant, good profit, good feedback from the clients. You know what? If this is something like healthcare for your firm, then this is a good place. This thing's got legs. Boy, we can market the heck out of this, and this gives us strength. Those lime greens, you got to go, all right, do we stay here or not? The lime green clients would certainly not be the ones that I would look at, banking my whole future on. The blues, need to be real careful with that. We get most of our clients who come to us seeking help with client feedback because they've just lost a major client and they had no idea the client wasn't happy. Those blues, that client's getting ready to leave. That client is not happy. If you're just looking at profit, you may think it's going fine. So when you begin to collect this strategic information from the client's perspective about what they thought of your value relative to their expectations, look how much a rich chart of information you can develop. So if you're going to only look at profit, you got to know that you're missing certain key elements. I mean, this is before you even say, well, let's look at this by design teams. Which design teams are doing extremely well? And the ones that are doing well probably have a good mix of training, assignments, staff, etc. The ones that aren't doing well, maybe they're on the wrong projects. Maybe there's an impediment there that could easily be found and removed. But to know it lets you diagnose it and deal with it more readily. Plus project types. This is where marketing once again would go. That lower left, we need to think carefully about that. And the upper right, I mean, that's our strong suit. That's our sweet spot. Man, we can market that all day long. Okay, so let me show you something. Last but not least, last two slides. The average score of all U.S. firms, over 250,000 responses, is that we are at 5.2. We have more than exceeded the expectations of the average client on the average project, the average time. So we are dramatically above just met expectations. And this is a massive amount of data being used to give us that number. And get this, without being too scientific, and I'm sure every firm that's listening is well above this, but that's sort of the industry's average profit relative to white-collar service professional industries in general. So we're we're achieving much less profitability, and yet we're achieving dramatically strong results from our clients. So when we look at our industry, we are in the potential category, which says, you know what, they're telling you you've earned more money. The profit margin of most firms is so low that any particular economic downturn drives about 10% of them out of business, not to mention the pain the rest of them suffer. But if we were to be gathering this information, understanding more accurately the kind of value we bring to our clients and how to increase it, I can tell you right now that once we know that, once we understand it as designers, it tends to factor into our pricing to where we can at least remain viable and sustainable and available to our clients to become their experts and to keep helping them. Okay, now I'll just repeat my apology of whatever preaching I was doing at the choir. Just forgive me. I don't know exactly what audience is out there, but let me know if you've got some questions, if this stuff makes sense to you. Is this something everybody's already doing? Is there another way that you found to do it that's having some great results? Are you having any problems with it? Do you see some issues that might be sort of yeah, but what about when they don't respond, etc.? So I'm going to turn this back over to Ryan. I think he's going to help orchestrate questions and be happy to answer. And I have my email address up here, so feel free to send me an email and follow up if you would like to do it that way. Ryan?
Hey, thanks, Mike. I appreciate your participation and great information here. I've got 4 questions, probably not enough time to cover all of them, so we'll get the last couple later on via email. One here, Terry is asking, we gather feedback in person, but don't always start from the beginning of the project. It's hard for engineers to find the right time to send me to talk to the clients. Mike, you have any quick comments or suggestions for Terry?
Sure. Well, first off, congratulations, Terry. It sounds like that you are being a good advocate to your client, good connection there, conversation, always beneficial. One of the distinctions I probably didn't make very well is that what we found to be the most helpful is to actually be gathering some very metric-laden information to where, aside from, or let's say in addition to, the more conversational kind of feedback, discussion type stuff, that you have this very exacting kind of information to where you can see little blips, little trends, little tendencies, little anomalies, because that gives you much more strategic information. And if you were to ask me the ideal scenario, I would say, and we've been using this system for, boy, heading towards 10 years now, it would be constantly, and this is sort of at every sort of key milepost, event, etc., in your project, send the survey to all the relevant stakeholders who are likely to have developed an opinion as to how that event worked, and take their information. And when you look at it, you will instantly know what to talk about, and you'll know who to ask about that. So the goal is, and this is fairly straightforward, is that your contact to those people goes somewhat like this. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks for the chance to work with you. I saw that you were giving us really high scores on this. And you know what? I think your people are being a big part of making that happen. And you know what? I look forward to continuing becoming your expert there. I did see we got a low score in this right here. Now, we did follow up, and I think we've got that addressed, but I just wanted to see, did you have any further concerns there? And in other words, instead of walking into the client meeting and sort of going, so how's it going? Because really that tells them that we don't know. What we're proposing is collect the information, go in armed with the information and the follow-up to where your conversation with the client is much more proactive, and you're not just asking for info, you're actually laying out the process on the table that's being followed. And oftentimes, if the person you're talking to is unaware of some of that, you can actually sort of extol the virtues that your team is creating for that client a little more succinctly and visibly for that client. So if we boil it down to its bare essence, collect the strategic, actionable, metric-laden data, by an objective system such as a survey-driven type format, and then figure out when and how to follow up with who, and that follow-up is live communication. Face-to-face is even better, but at least live communication. So does that help?
Mike, I think that's a good answer there. We are at the 90 minutes. I'll pose a few more questions in a moment and let you answer those for those who do have time to stick around. The rest of you who need to move on to your day, thank you for being here. Please look for a feedback request from us. Mike shared a visual of our answer scale and how that process works. If you want to see that in action and actually experience what one of these metric-laden survey events might look like, please respond, and do know that we will follow up with you as well. So do look for that feedback request. You can share it with those in your office if multiple of you are listening. At this point, I will dismiss, and I'll pose a couple other questions for Mike for those who have some extra time. The rest of you, thank you very much. Mike, there is a question here from Charles. We use the Likert scale. For those of you who don't know the Likert scale, that's the scale of 1 to 5, typically from very likely to very unlikely. Charles says, one of the roadblocks I have is that clients with a positive attitude score uniformly high, and clients with a negative attitude score uniformly low. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's a good question, Charles, and let's go back to the initial concept, which is what we're working on is a relationship, and that every client has a different way of seeing things, their expectations, their perceptions, their filters, which is what we called it. And so if I was looking at feedback from a particular client, the two things I'd look at is this. When that client works with person A in my office, what does their feedback look like compared to what it looks like when they work with person B? So I would look at what person is producing the better results. And it isn't as much if all the scores are very low or all the scores are very high. What you're looking for is who does best. Now, I can also take a single person or a group in my office who tends to have a somewhat, who uses the somewhat same process and go, all right, so let me see how they do with client A versus client B. Which client do they do better with? That begins to tell me which client and team combo is working best for whatever reason. And last but not least, I will look at that particular client's long-term results with everything that's going on. And if what I see is that a team that generates typically above meta expectation results for their clients is being scored constantly, if not chronically, as below meta expectations with this person, then I think I might be interested in having a conversation with the client just to see if there's some sort of verbalized animosity. But if not, if they're just a hard score, but they're actually loyal to us and they keep bringing us work, then I would only look at the anomalies in those scores. Where did a particular score that may be in general lower than most, where did it go even lower than it typically goes? Or where did a set of scores that are generally kind of low, where did one pop up? Because the anomalies in someone's typical scoring are what really tell the story. That's why it's so difficult to go talk to someone and have them say something like, you know what, I think you guys do a good job. Because you really can't get enough exacting precision out of that to know what was working extremely well. Was it relationship stuff? Was it deliverable stuff? What exactly was it? And what happened on our side to trigger that response? So basically, low scores and conversely, someone who grades with a lot of high scores, look at where they tended to have their lowest of the lows or highest of the lows, and the same thing for the highs. Look at their anomalies. That's where the biggest amount of, as we said before, that's where their loyalty drivers are. Okay.
All right, thanks, Mike. I'll just drop one other out here. The rest, I think we can follow up later. And this question comes in from Tracy. Tracy is interested in some sample language for the types of questions you ask.
All right. Well, number one, it needs to. Remember, when I started off saying that the proposal I got from the GC or a copy of it was getting ready to go to their client, who's actually also my client, and I thought, boy, that the whole message behind this thing just sounds contrary to a good relationship. It sounds almost offensive, and if not offensive. So number one, make the overall tone of the entire collection process um, not just sappy sweet, but actually productively sort of mutually beneficial. You are asking them for information that can help you do a better job on their project. And to have something very akin to that statement lead off your whole request to where you're going, here's why I'm asking for this info. I want you to give me the stuff that will help me help you. And then the basic questions format that I think works very well is, how well does our firm's process assist you in fill in the blank? And if you just finished up a meeting, it might be in orchestrating the project site meeting. Or if you just went through a particular exercise on a particular technical piece in handling the design and implementation of the neutron generator, whatever it is. So how well did our firm's process, this is not about a particular person, how well did our firm's process assist you or help you in so and so? So you're wanting them to tell you, once again, relative to their expectations, and if what you offer them is just sort of a text box where they just sort of write in their answer, it will require a lot more work on your part to sort of figure out, all right, what are they saying? How are they really scoring us? Where do we have an issue? Where do we have an opportunity? Where do we have some really good applause? We found that while it's a patented system, that if you can tie the whole thing together in a numeric fashion, then what you can do is you can actually set alerts to where if certain conditions are met, high scores, low scores, patterns of scores, then you can instantly be notified to where as this information is streaming through, you can be very mindful at a moment's notice of stuff that might be concerning. So once again, begin with the end in mind, which is a greater understanding of what the client's perceptions are, what their expectations are. So if your questions can draw the information out because you're asking for information that will help you be helpful to the client, but if it can produce the best reports to produce the best strategic understanding and strategic planning for the future for your firm, bingo. Okay?
Well, thank you. I see the majority of attendees today have stayed around 10 minutes past our scheduled stop time. Those of you who gave us a bit of extra time, we thank you very much. I hope the questions and answers were useful. There are a couple others we'll follow up with via email and get you answers to those questions in the next couple days. Again, thank you very much. Please look for feedback requests coming from us. We certainly value your insights so we can make these programs better, and we can also follow up with any other additional comments or questions you may have. Thanks again, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.